Now that the spring is over and we're starting to move in to the summer, Georgia's going to be doing summer workouts. I think I have a better idea of Georgia's depth chart now and what we're going to see kind of in this lineup when 2024 starts. So I'm going to go through position by position and just talk about it. We can start with the obvious, and that's Carson Beck, right at quarterback. He will be the starting quarterback for Georgia. That's like the most obvious thing I've ever said to you guys, right? Behind him, it's interesting. I think that there will be a real competition between Gunnar Stockton and Jaden Rashada at QB2. QB4 is likely Ryan Puglisi, true freshman who missed a good bit of the spring, wasn't there the whole time, dealing with knee injury that was lingering from high school. So I don't expect him to see the field or even sniff close to it. He's a future player. So Jaden Rashada and Gunnar Stockton, they'll be behind Carson Beck. I've leaned toward Gunnar being the guy that would be out there if something were to happen. Jaden Rashada was brought in for depth and maybe to compete for the future job. Running back, it's Trevor Etienne's job, right? Trevor Etienne will be the starting running back for the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't think that that's too much of a question. I think he's clearly the most talented guy they have there, and I imagine he'll end up with the most touches out of that running back room when the season's over. I think 1,000 scrimmage yards, if not 1,000 rushing yards, is very possible for Trevor, partially because of how good the offensive line is that I'm going to get into here in just a minute. But behind him, in this current moment in time, it's Roderick Robinson at RB2 and Branson at RB3, just because Branson has been, he's got the year on him, and I actually think Branson's probably a little bit better than Roderick just from what we watched in their freshman seasons. All three running backs bring a different piece to the table, and I think that Branson, once he gets healthy, can be implemented into it. But until we see that, until we know in the fall where he's really at, Roderick is most likely your RB2 and potentially the RB1 against Clemson if Trevor Etienne is suspended for that DUI arrest, right? Back a little bit ago. So let's move into the offensive line before we get to the weapons on the outside. One of the most interesting pieces of Georgia's depth is the offensive line because I think it's super deep. At left tackle, you're going to see Ernest Green, but behind him, they got Monroe Freeling, and that's a guy that they trust to go out there and play, right? So they're too deep there at left tackle comfortably. You'll see freshmen behind him, Nair Daniels. You'll see, it just kind of depends. I don't know exactly where they're going to put some of these freshmen, right, that they brought in a bunch of offensive linemen. I don't know where they fit yet, but they don't really need to worry about it because none of the freshmen are going to be in that too deep, in my opinion. Left guard, you're going to see a rotation between Dylan Fairchild and Micah Morris. The most interesting spot, one of the most interesting spots on this Georgia team, in my opinion, is that left guard spot. Dylan Fairchild is a very good pass blocker. You know that Micah Morris is a mauler. You see them rotate a lot. Who's going to start? I don't know. I give the edge to Dylan Fairchild just because he had the edge last year, but expect Micah Morris to rotate in there. At center, it's Jared Wilson. But I think that the backup might be Tate Ratledge, who is also the right guard. Tate Ratledge taking center snaps this spring to help with depth, to help with insurance for if something were to happen to Jared Wilson. It'll be Wilson will be first-year starter, even though he's been in the program for a few years, sat behind Cedric Van Pran, gets his turn. Ultra athletic, apparently. I'm excited to see it on a bigger stage. You hear all the rumors, and you hear what Kirby and those players say about Jared Wilson, how fast he is, how strong he is. But behind him, you got Drew Bobo as well, who's someone that they can throw in there, and we know that he's dealt with snaps before. But Tate Ratledge working on that, and he will also be the starting right guard, right? And behind him, I think it's more fair to say that they would just rotate over Micah Morris or Dylan Fairchild when it comes to those guard spots. They have the benefit of having 3 starting caliber guards instead of 2. At right tackle, you got Bo Hewley, who missed spring. You got Jamal Merriweather. Those guys sitting behind Xavier Truss, who I assume is going to be the starting right tackle for the Georgia Bulldogs heading into this year. A guy that's played a lot of guard, a guy that's played some tackle. I think he'll end up being the right tackle for Georgia this year. All right, that's all we've seen. That's all the indicators say. Let's move on to tight end. Look, it's Oscar Delp. Been in the program for the longest, has impacted a championship, has done whatever's asked of him. Put on a lot of weight, blocks a lot. Right, this is a guy that was a superstar pass catcher in high school in Forsyth County. So he's your guy They brought in Benjamin Yurosek, who is a very, very good pass catcher. Transfer from Stanford. Hasn't arrived yet. Will be, I guess, this summer. So pretty soon here, I think he'll be allowed to join the program. I think he'll be out there. I think he's a potential weapon. Yet to see how Georgia wants to use him, but you go and watch the clips. He's going to get out on the field. I think Lawson Lucky's going to make his way out on the field. Expect Georgia to run a lot of 12 personnel and having 2 tight ends out there. They want that for blocking. They want that for versatility. And they've got 3 guys there, and I like the freshman Jaden Riddell. He's going to get garbage time snaps. So tight end, they've got 4 guys who I think are really, really good. Really, really good. At wide receiver, it's a little bit interesting. Dylan Bell seems like the number 1 guy on the outside, yet they can rotate these guys. You know, your number 1 inside receiver slot guy is Dominic Lovett, no question. Behind him, I think you get an Anthony Evans, right? I think that you get Michael Jackson III. I think you get a Sokovie White. They have a lot of depth there in that slot spot. This is a really deep group. Dylan Bell is going to be one of the starters. I think Ra Thomas and Kobe Young are going to rotate on the outside as kind of an X receiver, and Dylan Bell is going to be someone who's a versatile guy they put all over the place. We know that about Dylan Bell. But I think you're going to get at the X, you're going to get Ra and Kobe Young rotated there. London Humphrey's another guy that they can put on the inside with that speed. They can put him on the outside with that height. So very deep group at wide receiver. Let's move on to defense now, projecting this depth chart. I think at end, if healthy, you'll see Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins out there a lot. You'll see Christian Miller out there a lot. This is going to be rotated a lot more than the offense will. So looking at the line, on the inside, it's Nazir Stackhouse and Warren Brinson up front at first. Jamal Jarrett and Jordan Hall and Xavier McLeod are going to fill in there. Jordan Thomas, a freshman, maybe he gets in there. Defensive end, though, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, Christian Miller's kind of a hybrid, inside-outside guy for them. Expect to see him out there. Of course, Mykel Williams also plays that position in addition to playing some outside linebacker this year. I'm going to get to that in just a second. That's an interesting piece here. Another guy who I thought flashed at G-Day at defensive end was Jonah Ajonye Joseph. I think Joseph Jonah Ajonye. Yes, Joseph Jonah Ajonye. JJA. True freshman is wearing number 99, defensive end. That's a guy who I think is going to fight his way on the field. Damon Wilson, Samuel Mpemba. Those are kind of some more depth pieces at your outside linebacker position. Chas Chambliss is going to be one of those starters too out there with Mykel Williams, who's also going to have his hands in the dirt. And a sophomore, I think that might step up is Gabe Harris. I thought he flashed at G-Day. I thought he looked really good in run stop. I think he's a guy that can get on the field. Maybe even in a lot of packages if they have Mykel Williams with his hand in the dirt, like I said, on the line. Linebacker, man, they're deep everywhere. I just keep saying it over and over again. I think that it'll be Smile Munden and C.J. Allen out there on the inside who will be rotating with Raylan Wilson and Jalen Walker and Troy Bulls. And then I think you can even dip into your freshmen and younger guys like Terrell Foster and Justin Williams. I just named a bunch of dudes. All right, but Smile Munden and C.J. Allen are the likely starters. C.J. Allen kind of taken over for Pop last year. Smile Munden now around for a while. A potential first-round pick if you ask me. Corner. All right, I'd be surprised if your first 2 are not Julian Humphrey and Dalen Everett. After that, to me, it looks like Ellis Robinson and Daniel Harris are your 3 and 4. Probably Daniel Harris is your 3 and Ellis Robinson is your 4th corner. DeMello Jones, a true freshman, another guy, might be at 5th or 6th on that list. And then you move over to safety. It's going to be Malachi Starks. I think Ja'Cory Thomas ends up being the starter. They have Dan Jackson there for depth. They have Jake Pope there for depth. They've got KJ Bolden there for depth, the guy that also flashed a G-Day, a true freshman. They've got David Daniel Sisavon for depth. But part of that depth is also going to be from those corners and safeties at that star position where I think Janelle Aguero is going to be the starter. And all of those DBs that I just talked about are going to be able to rotate at those spots. But if I'm projecting a starting lineup, I'm projecting Dalen Everett, Julian Humphrey, Malachi Starks, Ja'Cory Thomas, and Janelle Aguero. There's your depth chart.